Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. Today I wanted to just follow up on a video that I did titled Age Verification is Getting Out of Hand. In this video, I was going over a bill from the state of Colorado. I'm not going to go over every single reason the bill is ridiculous. I went over that in this 7-minute video over here if you're interested. TLDR is when you start using an operating system, it's going to ask for your age. It's not going to ask for your ID, so this is not age verification. This is age indication, so anybody could lie. And the thing that I found stupid about this is that when they're discussing application or software distributors, this could potentially apply to me just going to mirc.com to download an IRC client and them having to indicate my age. There's a number of reasons that this is completely nonsensical. If they were to require ID or proof that I am the age that I say that I am, now you're getting into a situation where for me to use a computer in that state, I have to show my ID, which just is creepy. I don't feel like, no. I don't feel like needing to get permission from my government to use a computer, because at the moment that you say, well, we need to be able to see your ID to do this, they could say, well, we don't want certain people to be allowed to use a computer. It's absolutely insane. It's ridiculous. Now, California has proposed a similar law, and one of the things that is bothering me here is where the aggravation is being directed when companies are talking about how to comply with this. System76 is a cool company. I believe that they resell Clevo computers. They have their own operating system called Pop! OS. Pop! OS is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, a fork of Ubuntu, and it comes with NVIDIA drivers and a bunch of other stuff, and it's somewhat optimized for the systems they sell. So System76 sells laptops and desktops, but they will sell them with Linux on them with the idea that when you buy this, everything's going to work. You don't have to deal with this part of the hardware doesn't work or that. They sell it with Linux, which is pretty cool. Now, this company is going to be complying with this law, and there are people discussing this on their subreddit, and they're very clear that they don't want this. I personally hate this bill, they say, and the idiot lawmakers who have pushed it. However, it passed unanimously, -3 votes not recorded in the California Assembly, which has 60 Democratic and 20 Republican members. I would expect similar bills to pass in more states, and it is possible similar legislation would be passed in Europe elsewhere in the future. I do not believe most free and open source software is ready to handle the ludicrous amount of legal liability this kind of legislation introduces. The talk of noncompliance would be fun if there was not a $7,500 fine per child who uses the operating system for the operating system provider performing intentional noncompliance. I can assure you that all Pop! OS and likely many other open source operating systems will do everything possible to prevent identification of users. This bill does not require any identifying information of users to be stored. And they don't like this. And again, signed, my deepest and dearest disdain to Gavin Newsom and the California State Assembly. There's a great post following up on this from somebody saying, if all they're doing is requiring age to be input, not verified at the OS level, why do you think they're doing that? Do you really think that's all they want? You have to know if they're being honest that this will only be the first step to get you to comply with an unreasonable mandate and likely unconstitutional, so that they have your company do the work of implementing their demands, so that you will be ready to implement the next step. And you have to know that the next step is the purpose for this first step. They don't care about people entering random numbers into a computer as required to get the OS to work. That's clearly not the point. The point is to see who complies with the first step, so that you don't have a leg to stand on when they demand what they really want. You know this. You have to know this. The only way your company gets out of this, sadly, is to refuse to do business with states that require these absolutely insane surveillance laws in your property. I think he's right. I think lawmakers are watching this wondering, can we get them to be okay with putting something in the operating that says you must be 18 to do X, Y, and Z? And then, well, listen, you had to know that we were going to ask for your ID at some point, right? Like, you're right. Lewis is correct when he said that this law does nothing because it doesn't ask for ID. You already did this. You ask for ID, right? Because it's easier at that point to get them to ask for ID than it is to get the companies to say, you know what, never mind, we were uncomfortable with this to begin with. Because you already took the first step, people are less likely to take a step back because they've already committed. And that's the arm twisting that I think that is going on here. This is my controversial take here, but my problem was with how many people are crapping on System76 for saying that they're going to comply with this, rather than crapping on the legislators in the state of Colorado and California. This person over here saying that I'm not going to be doing business with their company anymore. System76 is going on record saying, we don't want to do this, we hate this, we think these legislators suck. Can you find somebody from Dell or Acer or Asus or Toshiba that's willing to say that? Can you find somebody from Microsoft or Apple that's willing to say that? Not really. And again, to be clear, I am somewhat biased here as a business owner. Because I understand what it's like to have your arm twisted in this particular way. California is not Wyoming. California is almost 40 million people. California is a very large part of the country. And while it is not the entire country, not doing business with that entire state, if you are a small business that is selling via mail order, that is going to fuck you in a very large way. I understand what it's like to go through this. I had my website almost completely wiped off of Google for 6 months, and I figured out what it is I needed to do to get it back. It just magically started ranking again once I told Gemini, what is it that Google wants my website to say? And then just putting it up there. After 6 months of fucking around and editing my site and updating it in every single way possible in the way that I wanted it to look, nothing worked. I asked Gemini, what do you want it to look like? Boom! I rank. At one point, I was even number 1. Didn't last for long, but I was number 1 for a good period of time. That's crazy. I was this close to the point where I was thinking, let me just sell my website, my Google Maps listing for $5,000 to somebody else, sell all the hardware at my business, close and do something else. I was this close to that just a few months ago. I understand what it's like to be at the point where you're getting drained down to zero and there's not much any choices left. I really hate having conversations with people who have not done anything horribly wrong just to say, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to pay you anymore. You've done nothing wrong. When I have hired somebody who is a thief or somebody who treats people like shit or breaks everything or has a horrible attitude, firing them is a lot of fun. But when you just walk up to somebody and say, I'm sorry, California implemented an age verification law, and in order to make people happy on Reddit, we are not selling there anymore. Therefore, all 8 of you have to get laid off. Like, that's a really difficult thing to do. And I have some empathy for that. Now, I'm not saying that it would be right for them to put surveillance into all their products, but I really am not seeing but I really rather see the aggravation at the people who made this. Like, I understand why you're mad at System76, and I also I get that if they do it, everybody else is going to do it. But Microsoft is going to comply with this. Apple's going to comply with this. Major vendors are going to comply with this. After being mad at the legislators, be mad at the $3 to $4 trillion companies that have the resources to push back against these laws that System76 doesn't. Then be mad at System76. But we need to push together against the people who are actually screwing us. The people who are screwing us are the legislators that are coming up with these age verification laws, not System76. Yeah, you could stop using System76 because the Linux distribution that they bundle with it asks for your age. But what are you going to go to? You're going to go buy a laptop from Acer where they bundle it by default with Windows 11? Like, what are we doing here? I mean, you don't have to use their operating system on their computer. You can use another operating system on their computer. And I appreciate that when they're putting their devices together, they're putting their products together with the mind, I want to make sure that this works with Linux. Like, I don't own a System76 computer. I'm not saying this because I own stock in their company or I'm a fanboy. I just really hope that people stay mad at the people who actually created this problem rather than the people that are debating internally, do we push back against this and lay off 10 or 30 people, or do we go ahead with the same thing that every other company is being forced to go ahead with so that we can stay in business? And obviously, I'm biased as somebody who has been through this very experience very recently. It sucks that in the modern world that many companies are faced with stick with your principles and stop being a business, or, deal with the world as it is. It's not fun. Just a rant. I'll just put the disdain where it belongs, please. That's it for today. And as always, hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.